found in a trunk in the bulrushes of the Bronx River.
Project map of the coastlines of North Carolina and Virginia. Examine closely for evidence of the lost colony of Roanoke Island. Keep an eye open for Virginia Dare.
Suspects, too, have lit out for the territory ahead.
Sew together a boy of straw and rags, buttons for eyes, cardboard boxes for shoes, red string for lips.
Look for yourself in the mirror, in the gutter pools, in the school window, in the butcher's blade, in the palm of the hand, in the cloud, in the microscope, in the Christmas coin, in the bottom of scoured pans, in the shine of subway rails.
Manuscripts lost in bottles. Claudia Shosha, Tosca, Isabel Archer, Lady Brett Ashley, Natasya Filipovna, Fayaway, Isolde, Manon Lescaut, Dominique Francon, Anna Karenina, Maggie Verver, Nana, Becky Sharp, Anna McCaver.
Lost. A hound? A turtle dove. Something like that.
The park in Versailles. Decapitated ghosts of aristos strolling along an alley of elms.
It was a long way from home, from the fields I knew and the village square where we often met at evening. She always said, "Go on, spread your wings and leave here. The world," she said, "is larger than this village, wider than these winding narrow streets. There is a life taller than our church tower."
The elms in Tompkins Square Park, the flagpost, the flag, the flagstones too, the iron railings.
The materialist conception of history starts from the principle that production, and with production, the exchange of its products, is the basis of every social order, that in every society which has appeared in history, the distribution of the products, and with it the division of society into classes or estates, is determined by what is produced and how it is produced, and how the product is exchanged.
Then were the amorous dictates of the soul expressed in sensible simplicity, just as they were conceived, undisguised by the artificial cloak of specious words. There was no fraud, no deceit, no malice intermixed with plain-dealing truth.
I threw myself down under a leafy old tree by the road and wept. What was to become of me in this world, where no kind brother or sister, no mother or father, where no one tied to me by blood or kinship or friendship would give a hand? Darkness was approaching and the ground was cold. I still had half a loaf of stale bread in my sack and some...
The Park of the Butte-Chaumont lies on the northeast side of Paris, at the west end of Belleville. It extends in the form of an irregular crescent over an area of about 55 acres. The quarries formerly worked here have been transformed into a rocky wilderness surrounded by a small lake, while the adjacent rugged surface is now covered with gardens and walks shaded by trees. cascade falling from some considerable height into an artificial stalactite grotto is intended to enhance the attractions of the scene. The highest rock is surmounted by a miniature Corinthian temple.
Site of the last stronghold of the Paris Commune, massacred on the park's heights, 1871. Women and children, too.
The poet goes forth on the road, refusing to mingle with the crowds, ages ahead and ages behind the other wayfarers. He is child, youth, and man, but ever young and fair. He goes before him, thinking that he discerns every hour, through the mists of the morning, beyond the suns of the day, above the vapors of the evening, emerging from the opaque nights, blue beneath the serene moons, the sparkling domes of the city of dreams.
It seems very evident that one person's narcissism has a great deal of attraction for those others who have renounced part of their own narcissism and are seeking after object love. The charm of a child lies to a great extent in his narcissism, his self-sufficiency, and inaccessibility, just as does the charm of certain animals which seem not to concern themselves about us, such as cats and the large beasts of prey.
Then I went down to the sea and across great waters and deep valleys of brine, the masts bending, the sails groaning in the thick weight of the wind. Dark and cold below deck, and dark and cold my heart, set against the comfortless world.
Look up God in the search engine, with variant spellings to be sure.
Have another drink?
Sure, why not?
What about another?
Why not?
For the road?
Sure.
Up a hill past a Romanesque church, stone, leaning, to a cemetery by a wheat field. Find there 2 gravestones side by side. Theo, Vincent. Exhume the remains. Inter them in Tompkins Square Park. North side, please.
Note the fecundity of the 17th century, its neoclassical richness. Poussin, especially, dilate on the relationship between Montaigne's Sur des vers de Virgile and Poussin's sublimation of Eros in his art. Cite, especially, Poussin's Venus and Mercury. Note Venus's coyness, her gaze turned away from Mercury, who studies her with avid longing. On the ground, baby Eros is strangling baby Anteros. Love throttling lust.
A novel, bending to the will of gravity and to the laws of nature and human psychology. Plot-driven, full of round and colorful characters you will remember a long time. Each chapter evolving from the previous and each chapter racing the story forward.
A memoir filled with charming and poignant anecdotes about ordinary folk who make up the salt of the earth. The author overcomes a crippling childhood of disease, poverty, and abuse, told in unaffectedly, beautifully wrought prose.
He lived among savages, then among Philistines, ended up in the Bronx across from Jay Gould and his trust fund mausoleum.
Study your subject carefully and know it thoroughly before writing. If, for example, a carpet is described, be sure you know who made it and when and where. The kind of weave and the tradition of the design, the previous owner, if any. Thus, your scene might read, he stepped on the carpet woven in 1810 in the Berber Mountains, where its design of interlocking arches followed the pattern delighting successive generations of the Bushido family, established by the earliest inhabitants of that remote and pagan region.
Set fire to the world, to the word.
The burning furnace of the universe, as seen through the lens of personality.
Don Quixote, Shadows on the Hudson, Journey to the End of the Night, The Bark Tree, Pierrot Mon Ami, The Last Days, The Baron in the Trees, The Third Policeman, Lolita, The Trial, The Idiot, Under the Volcano, The Big Sleep, The Loser, Tropic of Cancer, Man's Fate, Pedro Paramo, Tender is the Night, The Making of Americans, Remembrance of Things Past, The Magic Mountain, New Grub Street, Esther Waters, Great Expectations, The Three Musketeers, The Golden Bowl, On the Road, The Bravo, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Confidence Man, Tristram Shandy, The Count of Monte Cristo, Victory, The Sheltering Sky,
High and Low, Last Year at Marienbad, The Children of Paradise, Rules of the Game, The Fountainhead, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Weekend, Citizen Kane, The Wild Bunch, Belle de Jour, Jules et Jean, On the Waterfront, The Lavender Hill Mob, Conan the Barbarian, My Darling Clementine, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, A Hard Day's Night, The Mother and the Whore, High Noon, The Bad and the Beautiful, The Seven Samurai, Broadway Danny Rose, The Third Man, The Outlaw Josie Wells, An American in Paris, Raging Bull.
I have not been so long cashiered from the role and retinue of this god Eros, as not to have a memory informed of his powers and merits. I still feel some tepid remains of that past ardor, but from what I understand of it, the powers and worth of the god are more alive and animated in the painting of poetry than in their own reality. Poetry reproduces an indefinable mood that is more amorous than love itself.
The cells begin to croak, call out, politely at first. Some oxygen, please. Then realizing this is a desperate matter, they plead. Oh, please send even just a little of that exhilarating gas in here. Soon, it's lights out for the cells, and that spells curtains for the whole act. The dick rises, I'm told, for the finale, then piss, shit, and corruption.